All right. What's up, everybody? So, I've been having a pretty good time so far, telling my stories, talking about all my crazy experiences. Channel's not doing too bad. It's increasing every week in subscribers. So, once again, don't forget to hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to leave them comments. All right. This is going to be another prison story, mostly everybody's favorite. So, this story is from my days at Corrections Corporation of America as a correctional officer or a detention officer, some people might say, because this facility, Central Arizona Detention Center in Florence, Arizona, was a federal detention center, not a prison. Basically, the majority of the inmates here were going through active court cases still. Of course, a lot of them are returning customers, like they've been previously through before. They got charges, previously. We mostly detain for U.S. Marshals, Homeland Security, and ICE. I'll probably talk about some of the other contracts in other videos, such as DC and Alaska contracts. Anyway, this video is going to be about an individual being detained for U.S. Marshals. This individual was a bona fide serial killer. He had already been convicted of 2 or 3 murders in California, including the rape and murder of the daughter of an FBI agent. He was also being investigated for at least 5 other murders, at least 1 in Arizona, and also the murder of a soldier that was on leave, that had stopped to sleep at a rest stop. He unfortunately slit the soldier's throat while he slept with his windows open. I believe that one happened in California. He was, at the time, he was being tried in Arizona for another murder. And the FBI had also stated that, in their previous reports about this individual, that there was many unsolved murders that fit his MO. They said they believed he had started killing at a very early age, possibly as young as 14 or 15 years old. This individual's name is William Floyd Zamastil. There's a book written about him. It's called Gazing into the Abyss, Serial Killer William Floyd Zamastil. During this time, I was assigned to third shift, or, graveyards, and I was assigned to segregation, or lockdown unit, including old segregation, which is mostly inmates who are mentally unstable and on serious psych meds. Right next to old segregation is new segregation. It was our max custody level 5 unit. When we first arrived at our jail, or actually when he first arrived at our jail, I had mostly been working in a different unit, which mostly housed gang members. This unit is called 900 housing unit, and I was mostly working Sierra Pod, and it was, mostly gang members in there, mafiosos. And so I had been hearing about this guy, but I had never seen him in person yet. So one night, I got called on the radio to head down to the law library for a 2-man plus supervisor escort back to new segregation. I didn't really think about it, just figured it was an inmate that was hostile towards staff or something. So when I arrived to the law library, there was already another CO there and a sergeant waiting. I got called for a lot of these types of escorts because of my time, about 3.5 years on our SORT team, our Special Operations Response Team, while I was there at CADC. It was basically just the jail's version of SWAT, riot squad, So anyway, I took a look at the inmate when I stepped into the law library. He looked like an older biker, or like an evil Santa Claus, as some people later started to call him, He was sitting down, but I could tell he was a big dude, about 6'3" to 6'5", and pretty husky. Not overly fat, just a really big dude. I figured he was just like an ex-biker, or, like an older biker that was high profile or considered dangerous, for some reason, some kind of threat. So, I just started BSing with the CO and the sergeant. We started talking about football. The other CO's team was the Packers, and his cheeseheads had just beat my Steelers in the Super Bowl. So he was talking some smack, And so just out of nowhere, the inmate just like chimes in, and he was like, "Watch out for them Raiders this year." That's how he said it. And like, no joke, I look at him and I say, "Man, the Raiders suck," And then so like I laughed, and then I was like, "Oh, I know what some of you are thinking too. Like, figures a serial killer would be a Raiders fan, That's pretty much what I thought too when I found out later, who he was. But yeah, so like the CO and the sergeant just got kind of quiet, and then they look at me, and he says in a very quiet voice, he says, "Bro, do you know who he is?" And I was like, "No." I got kind of nervous, like I thought maybe, he was going to tell me he's like some high-ranking dude, like in the Hells Angels or something like that, like a shot caller, He said he's that serial killer, William Zamastil. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, didn't know, But I figured I already said what I said, I just spoke my mind. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful or anything, just give you my opinion. Like, hey, sorry, dude, your team sucks, because they did at the time, and sorry, they still do. But anyway, I think he actually respected that, or maybe because I didn't show any fear or back down, or maybe he was just playing mind games. I don't know, but he actually struck up a conversation with me on the way back to the unit, just talking football. He brought up the old rivalry of the Raiders versus the Steelers back in the 70s, and he was impressed and surprised that I knew so much about it, because I was pretty young during that time, but I remembered watching all the highlights of some of those games and reading about them in books too, So after we dropped him off at his cell, the sergeant and the other CO were just like tripping out. They were like, "Damn, bro, that's the most we've ever heard him talk to anybody here, so far." And tell the truth, like I didn't really know what to think. I was like, it was interesting, but I didn't know if it was good or bad. You know what I mean? So when when I finally rotated back around to new segregation, it had been like maybe 2 or 3 weeks since that conversation. Since that night, I had escorted him back to his cell to new seg, and I wasn't even sure if he remembered me or not, or the conversation. I just remember that night when I was relieving the CO from the previous shift, he asked me, have you ever dealt with Zamastil yet? And I was like, yeah. I said, I escorted him back from law library, and we had a brief conversation. And he was like, "What? Really? He talked to you?" I said, "Yeah." And then he said, "Well, he's going to try to stare you down and intimidate you. He does that to every CO they put in here that he hasn't seen yet, and he'll stand at his window and just stare at you all shift. That's what he told me. And then he said, but maybe he won't do it to you since y'all are buddies, haha, I was like, whatever, man. I said, I ain't claiming that, far from it. So anyway, I told him I appreciate that info, and then I looked up and I noticed he was already staring out his window at me, from his upstairs cell. So throughout the night, I went about my duties and pretty much stared, he pretty much stared through his window most of the night, so about 2 or 3 hours into the night, I noticed, he would step away from the window every time I did a security walk. He would step away from the window briefly, and then he would come back like maybe after, like when I started going down the stairs or something. So I was like, whatever, you know. So I did a lot of reading between security walks, when I was on graveyards to pass the time, because it gets kind of boring. And so I was reading a book, and technically we're only supposed to read the work, the regulations for our unit or whatever, But who wants to read that shit? um, and a lot of other COs, read too. Like I wasn't the only one. Anyway, I kept feeling his eyes staring down at me. So just being myself, to deal with the situation, I've always been kind of a natural smart ass sometimes, I just look up at him and I waved at him. I went, "Hi," you know, and I'm not sure if it pissed him off or what he thought, but he stared for like a couple seconds longer, and then he just like walked away from his window, and he didn't stare at me anymore that night, or actually any other nights that I worked in there that I can think of. Like sometimes he would walk up to his window and like look out for a couple seconds, but he like never stared at me anymore after that or tried to intimidate me. But so later that morning, when it was time to serve breakfast around 4 a.m., I believe, when I came to his cell to give him breakfast, his lights were still off. So I leaned against his door to look through the window to see where he was at. Because with a high caution inmate like him, you always want to see where they're at before you open up the food trap at the front of their cell. And for those of you who don't know what a food trap is, it's a small rectangular opening in the front of the cell door that opens with a large key to pass items through, such as food, legal papers, etc. Inmates, they've been known to assault staff through a food trap when they're open. Sometimes the inmates can even open it themselves. Some of them figure out how to open it from the inside, And a lot of COs have been assaulted, like with razor blades, homemade knives, even spears made out of paper. Yes, paper. They soak it in water till it gets hard, and then they sharpen it. So they can use like a newspaper, a magazine, whatever, And then it gets really hard, like paper mache, and then they sharpen it to a point. They can make them really long too, like up to 6 feet long. Sometimes they also throw bodily fluids. Yeah, it's nasty, I know. Like urine, feces, or they'll mix it, and they'll try to throw it in your face, blood, whatever. But I can gladly say it never happened to me. I never gave them any reason, I guess. So anyway, like I said, I leaned against his door. Like I put my face to his window with my hands like this, but on both sides. To block the light out so I could see where he was at, because his cell was completely dark, And I said, "Hey, do you want breakfast?" And he yells back, "Stop leaning on my fucking door." That's what he yelled at me, So I'm not sure why I did it, but it was just like reflex, like me being me. I grabbed his door handle and I shook his cell door like that, And I said, "Man, I'm not leaning on your freaking door, man. I'm trying to ask you if you want freaking breakfast, dude." So in a more normal voice, he just kind of like answers me back, "Yeah." So I remember one of my good buddies, like that day after shift, I was telling him what happened. Another CO, his initials are DW. He's one of my homies. He's one of my best friends. He asked me, "Bro, what would you have done if his cell door would have opened right then when you shook it?" I just laughed and I said, "Man, I don't even know. Maybe shit myself and then either slam it or get ready to fight, But so maybe about a couple weeks into it, he started conversating with me again, just mostly about football, which was cool with me. I didn't want to discuss any kind of personal stuff with this guy. Of course, I mean, really with any inmate, but especially with this guy, So one morning, while we're talking, while I was picking up the empty breakfast trays after breakfast, and So I asked him, I said, hey, Zamastil, can I ask you something? And he just like kind of looks at me really serious. He was like, yeah, what's up? And I said, I know you won't talk about any of your, any of your current active cases, but I said, how many, I kind of stuttered like that. I said, how many, how many have you killed? I said, and he stares at me for a second, and and then he just kind of like, he kind of goes like this. He goes, too many to count. That's what he said, just like that. And I just thought to myself, fuck, man, this dude's he's a nutcase, And I was like, I pretty much decided to myself right there, like, the FBI is probably right when they say this guy started killing in his early teens. And there's probably like a lot more unsolved murders that he probably did that he hasn't been charged with, that fit his MO, like the FBI said. So anyway, another night when I was actually working the unit next door, which is old segregation, like I said, that's the psych inmates mostly, and that are heavily medicated. I was speaking to the CO next door that was working new segregation that particular night, and we started talking about Zamastil, and I told him, what I had asked him, like I think it was maybe like a week before or something like that, and what he had said to me, and he was like, oh shit, for real? He goes, well, check out what I asked him tonight and what he told me. And I believe the CO too, because he was like a big old country boy, and he was pretty funny. He was like real straight out, like real blunt, kind of crazy. And he was like, he goes, I asked him, hey, Zamastil, I'm just curious, why do you kill people? He says he asked him just like that, and he probably did. He was kind of a crazy big country boy, like I said. And he said Zamastil just kind of looks at him and says, he goes, well, you're a hunter, right? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, well, you hunt Bambi, I hunt people. That's what he told him, And I was just like, man, that's nuts, bro. And he said he thought to himself, when Zamastil told him that, like, okay, you're a sick fucker. But he didn't say it to him, he just thought it. And then he was like, damn, bro, yeah, I can't believe this dude. He's just like, he thinks of people like that, like they're prey, basically. And so like a couple nights later, I also remember talking to this young cocky CO from first shift that was about to relieve me, and I didn't remember him ever working that area. I had seen him like in 900 segregation unit, but I had never seen him in new segregation with the level 5s. So I asked him, hey, have you ever worked in here with Zamastil? And he was like a short, stocky Hispanic dude, and I think he was trying to cover his fear by talking real tough, about Zamastil. He says, man, I'm not afraid of that big Santa Claus looking freak. That's what he said, And then he was like, man, he's just an old man. He can't do nothing except murder women and children. He has to sneak up on sleeping men and slit their throats, And he was like, man, if that door comes open, I'll beat his old ass. That's what he said, So I was like, okay, bro, that may be so. I said, but just remember, I said, I'm not telling you to be afraid of the dude or anything, but just remember, if that door did open and he comes out, I said, he's not coming out to kick your ass, bro. he's coming out to kill you, you know? This dude wants to kill, you know? And I said, so more than likely he'll have a weapon. He'll probably have a shank, because he enjoys killing. So that's what his intentions are going to be, you know? And he thought about it for about a second, and then he was like, damn, he goes, you're probably right, man. He goes, I never even thought about it like that, you know? And he said, I'm not trying to act like like I ain't scared of the dude or whatever, but he's like, I never thought about it like that, you know? And I was just like, just be cautious, man. Don't be overconfident because he's an older guy. He's a killer, he's a big old dude and he's probably strong as hell. And that definitely adjusted his attitude a little bit, you know? But anyway, as far as I know, he's being investigated by the FBI for 5 other possible murders he committed. And as far as I know, he got 2 25-year sentences for each of the murders he has been convicted for already. I haven't really checked on this, but I think if he got convicted for the murder here in Arizona, he was looking at the death penalty. I mean, hopefully they'll get him, they'll convict him for all the other ones. And, hey, man, hopefully he does get the death penalty here in Arizona. He definitely deserves it. But, we can only hope. So as far as I know, he didn't really do anything crazy while he was at CCA, except just scare the crap out of a lot of COs and nurses and anybody that came in there. A lot of counselors and stuff. But just being in the presence of a person like that is crazy enough, You're basically in the presence of pure evil. And someone who enjoys taking other lives for no reason whatsoever, just other than his enjoyment, it does something for him, I guess, Don't want to know what. But, more than likely, and this is my opinion, you can say he's either possessed, if you believe in that kind of stuff, or he's being influenced by evil spirits, or if you want to put it more in psychological terms, he's a sociopath, he has no remorse, no sympathy, no kind of feelings, And, a lot of people will say, he's just, he's criminally insane, But who knows why people like him do what they do. Anyway, take care of each other and yourselves. And this is another one of my prison stories. For now, your homie, Big Cisco. Peace.